Greetings, this is Topic Discussions, and this will be a report on the Chinese finals. So, the Chinese version of the finals has entered its open beta stage after 2 closed betas, and many players, especially longtime players of the international version, have strong opinions on this specific version. I'll go over some of the changes and drama surrounding the release of this version in case you're curious about what's going on in the Chinese version, and hopefully dispel any illusions about the grass being greener on the other side of the language barrier. It is known that China is a nation with strong online moderation, to put it one way, and so there are certain actions necessary to be made for any game to be officially published in China. It is one of the most exclusive gaming markets in the world, but is also one of the largest and most lucrative. So, foreign gaming companies are more than willing to jump through the bureaucratic hurdles necessary to enter this market. One of these hurdles is that any game officially published in China needs to be done so in partnership with a local company. And in this case, Embark chose the industry juggernaut Tencent. From my understanding, Tencent with Embark and Nexon created a new studio called Entropy Games to work on a localized version of the finals, although everyone, including the localization team themselves, generally attribute the work as done under the management of Tencent. Thus, Tencent was given a Season 6 copy of the finals and a mandate to optimize and localize it for local markets. Unfortunately, in terms of optimization, it seems to run poorer than even the current international version of the finals, despite it being 2 seasons ahead, often having lower frame rate and other performance issues, but more damningly is also suspected to have a tick rate that is lowered even further than the already ridiculously low tick rate the international version has. Regarding localization, there are many changes other than the obvious change to language of the UI. Most text has been localized to Chinese, but not all. Some, such as the sponsor logos, are more reasonable, but others, such as names of weapons not being translated, just makes the localization team look like they did a poor job. The voices of all characters have also been changed to Chinese too. However, it was heavily criticized for being monotone, and so an option to switch back to English voiceovers was quickly added.
各位，准备迎接跳跃吧！选手们将在令人眩晕的天幕体育场上空展开对决，这定会让你心跳加速。
嗨，又见面了！告诉你个好消息，你的表现成功引起了我们赞助商们的注意。
The reason for the voiceover's lower quality could be because Chinese AI speech is just less developed compared to English due to less training material or other uncontrollable factors. Or it could be because Tencent is just less experienced with this technology, as they don't have multiple years of experience with AI voice mixing that Embark has. Only time will tell in later seasons if Scotty and June talk more like real humans in Chinese. However, it's not just language that needs to be localized. There are also other forms of localization needed to be made in order to comply with local laws regarding depictions of certain imagery. Luckily, the entire theme of the finals is that it's already cartoonishly sanitized to be corporate friendly, so you don't get the really out of place changes like green blood in PUBG's case, or any major plot destroying changes that other story driven media often suffer from. That's not to say there weren't any changes at all, though. The logo of gas barrels has been changed from a skull to a hazard sign, and names of real locations have been altered to give plausible deniability that it's a real location, although it's still pretty obvious where the maps are meant to be with the names given. For example, it's not Seoul you're queuing into, it's the Korean capital. The names of fictional maps, however, are directly translated. A final note regarding the 2 versions is to not take the existence of a localized Chinese version as Chinese players now being completely separated from the international community, even though that is the intent of making separate versions of the game. The international version may be unlisted on Steam in China, but there are easy workarounds and many still vastly prefer the international version for various reasons. Regardless, there isn't any law prohibiting players from disregarding local versions of games to play their respective international versions, and people often will still use internet accelerators to play games over the firewall. I'm certain the Chinese pro teams will continue to scrim on the international version, for example. That's not to say there's no impact at all, though. There's the definite drop in the population of Asia servers from the release of the Chinese version. For Chinese players, the international version of the finals has always been rather pricey in terms of monetization due to the fact that multi-bucks aren't locally priced and instead priced directly to a dollar to RMB ratio. This initially led to concerns of Arc Raiders also going to be comparatively overpriced before the announcement to localize pricing, but that's a subject for another day. The Chinese version does have price adjustments to a certain extent. The general ratio of RMB to multi-bucks is 1 to 10 for the Chinese version and 1 to 13.9 for international. Due to the massive backlash in the closed beta 2 over the mostly more expensive pricing of items in the shop, Tencent promised to readjust the prices of all items in the store to be more reasonable, and on character skins they did not disappoint. Most are a better deal than in the international version, though with the caveat that character skin sets can't be individually bought anymore, so you can't just buy the gloves of a set, you'll have to buy everything. Strangely, however, the gun skins are almost universally more expensive than in the international version, which calls into question how much Tencent really followed through with their promise. There is one point where the Chinese version is objectively better than the international version: the generosity towards free-to-plays. You get 300 multi-bucks from the free battle pass and 500 from World Tour, as the numbers listed are cumulative instead of a total lump sum you can earn. Adding these two methods to earn multi-bucks gives you enough to buy the battle pass, which costs 750, meaning free-to-plays can grind a battle pass within one season. This level of generosity is genuinely surprising to me, especially coming from the notoriously greedy Tencent. My hypothesis to this generosity is that Tencent really wanted to incentivize seasoned players to stick to the Chinese version, but there could be some other less obvious reason. However, even with this generosity, the Chinese version has way less skins compared to the international version, with many of the older skins missing from the shop and no way to earn the older Battle Pass skins as of now. Tencent has been slowly adding more skins from the international version through updates, but at the current rate they will never finish adding all the skins. Additionally, there are some cosmetic features, such as tattoos, which are missing due to the aforementioned localization. Worst of all is that you don't get any compensation for any skins bought in the international version, so you have to rebuy all the skin sets in the Chinese version, as you can't buy individual parts of a set, as previously mentioned. All of this means that you have less customization and creativity to make yourself look good compared to the international version, and yet somehow it costs you more to make again. Regarding the Chinese-only skins, the ones in the Battle Pass are all themed on various aspects of Chinese culture, such as shadow puppets, hot pot, or Pekingese opera. There's a video by Doc Traveler on YouTube, which will showcase it all. The link will be down in the description below. The ones in the store, however, are not as strictly Chinese-themed, such as the rubber ducky grenade and the animal mascot suit. Speaking of which, the Chinese version also adds a new currency called TF points, which allows you to unlock various versions of certain skins. Some give you different changes, but most are just recolorings to make some more money off of the same skin. Anyhow, Chinese skins are generally considered to be inferior to the skins that Embark has made, being more lackluster and less creative than the skins from the international version. There's a comment under one of the videos from the official channel that puts it best. I feel like there's a problem with the design philosophy. In the international version, it is objects being turned into guns, but in the national version, it's merely adding elements on top of the gun. The design philosophy is different, and so the final product made is different, and thus is unable to escape from the mindset that plagues the skins of Tencent-made games. Please give us national version players something good to eat. If you have ever thought about how lopsided this is when Ruby 3 stacks get thrown against a bunch of golds, you haven't seen how bad it is when those same golds go against literal brand new players. Unfortunately, the number of seasoned players is a small minority, so every match in World Tour inevitably becomes a mass murder session of new players. Luckily, Ranked doesn't have as bad of an issue due to its nature of filtering noobs, but it does mean that solo queuing is borderline impossible because you are going to get paired with teammates who don't even know how to aim down sights. It definitely feels like early finals, however. Half the time there's a never-ending brawl by halftime between multiple teams over cash boxes 3 and 4 because there's a lot of FPS players who have all the gun skills but awful macro to the point of not knowing to disengage to plug boxes. Regarding formats, Quick Cash has been replaced with a 4-team cash out that plays very differently than any other mode. Because there are infinite coins but also faster respawn times you get from defending cash outs, you can just use wave tactics and spam respawns to stall a cash out forever or prevent a team wipe penalty. It's very chaotic and has less tactical depth than the traditional 4-team cash out of either World Tour or Ranked. Head-to-head and terminal attack are missing. There have been 3 Chinese exclusive game modes, all acting similarly to other limited game modes. One was the nuke game mode in Closed Beta 2, where you had a special item that allowed you to summon a nuke when deployed to throw at enemies. It was okay for like 2 matches before it got boring. The other in the Closed Beta was Weapon Master, which functioned similarly to how it was in Counter-Strike. The current one is a race to destroy the other team's structures, earning you money for how much you destroy the enemy base with sledgehammers. You can't damage your own team's structure. Quite frankly, it felt like Heavy Hitters, but less interesting, but I suppose it does teach destruction to new players better. Interestingly, this game mode is sponsored by a real-world company called Meituan, a company that primarily does food delivery and is known for their moped drivers wearing yellow helmets and vests. Ranked games in the Chinese version play out the same as the international version, however the elo system has been changed. You start out at 10,000, and Ruby is if you get above 24,000 instead of just the top 500. You get a little extra for your first win of the day, and your own performance is also calculated into how much you earn. The rewards are also on parity with those of Season 6, however you instantly unlock the ranked rewards upon reaching the threshold instead of having to wait for Season's end. Annoyingly, in the Closed Beta 2, you only got a sticker, even though you were able to use a Ruby and Diamond AK skin for the duration of the Closed Beta, if you managed to get it. If you play in Asia, you will know that the finals is heavily infested with cheaters in this region. Don't worry, Tencent has implemented their own anti-cheat called ACE, which similarly is ineffective against cheating but leads to tons of false bans. At least it is guaranteed to do something compared to Denuvo. ACE constantly scans your storage until your HDDs explode and die. You know it's really effective when people make a third-party software called Fuck ACE, just so that the anti-cheat doesn't destroy your PC's performance. The balancing of the Chinese version has been a roller coaster of a ride. In the Closed Beta 2, much of the balancing was reminiscent of Season 1, to put it kindly. Heavy was overpowered, and playing light meant you were throwing. Of course, people complained that light was unplayable in the Closed Beta, and so the balancing is now much more in line with the international version. Some weapons have been balanced to parity, such as the 93R and CB01, but other items remain unchanged from Season 6, such as the Dematerializer, Sledgehammer, and Cerberus, and a few select got their own unique changes. These changes include adding 1 damage to each bullet for the Lewis gun and XP54, AKM returning to a 36-bullet magazine, RPG and Charge doing 110 damage, follow-up charge hits doing 50 damage, SA-1216 doing 78 damage a shell, Model having 7 shells and doing 117 a shell, Sword doing 83 damage a swing and 110 on lunge, with no angle lock, Mesh Shield having its HP buffed to 900, Dome lasting 9.5 seconds, Jump Pads having 30-second cooldowns, and Defibrillators only taking 0.6 seconds to fully be prepared. The items introduced in Season 7 and 8 were not added, although the map Nozomi has been backported into the game. Additionally, certain map elements have also been changed. Certain staircase railings now take 2 hits to destroy, many guns take 1 more bullet to destroy ziplines, and the railings in Fortune Stadium are gone, to allow for easier walking off cliffs. UI changes have generally been mixed. Some, such as a detailed better statistics page and being able to see the statistics of other people with sorting by game modes, is definitely welcome. But others, such as adding currencies and the fact that the buttons for the practice range are really small for some reason, detract from the overall experience. To promote the Chinese version of the finals, the marketing team has been hard at work creating various events to reach a wider audience of gamers. One of these events was to sign up to get your own unique name. For some reason, Tencent decided that despite everyone's name ID still having a 6-number tag to prevent issues with duplicate names, they still had to implement a unique name requirement so players can't have duplicate names. And so they told players to spread the word to come and grab your own unique name before it gets taken. However, it worked slightly too well. A huge influx of people were asking under comments whether you could play this game on mobile phones or not. So that turned out to be a bit of a disaster, but at least anyone who managed to grab a 1-character ID will have made a tidy profit in selling those accounts. There was another event which you could get a diamond skin if you linked your Steam account to your QQ account and have played the finals on Steam before. You got to choose between the M11, the AKM, or the Sledgehammer, but because of how it was implemented, a lot of people either just played like 2 hours before the event cutoff day, or bought a service to rent Steam accounts to link and get the rewards with. So now what was initially meant to be a status symbol for returning players has just become another skin that everyone has. Ultimately, the Chinese version of the finals has many changes, some positive, most generally considered not, but regardless it's going to continue on in its own separate space. I highly doubt there will ever be true parity between the versions, especially with two different teams working on the game for two different audiences, but from what I've seen, many are likely going to stick primarily to a version they will main and the other to dabble in. Thank you for watching this video to the very end. My apologies if the quality has been substandard. This is my first time making a long-form YouTube video. Nevertheless, I hope the materials I covered proved informative, and I wish you all a good day.